Hello and welcome to Encore. Coming up in today's film show, a lyrical look at the beginnings of contemporary dance. French musician and actress Soko takes the lead in The Dancer. Real estate and resistance, Sonia Braga shines in Brazilian film Aquarius after its red carpet release at Cannes made headlines. And we check out Romanian debut Dogs, a brooding drama on the Ukrainian border. For all of that, I'm joined by our film critic Lisa Nesselson. Hi, Lisa.
Hello, Olivia.
Now, out this week is a new film by first-time director Stephanie DiGiusto, La Danseuse, The Dancer. I think from its title, we know to expect some dancing.
Yes. Well, The Dancer celebrates the life and work of trailblazing, self-taught American dancer Loie Fuller, as you said, played by the French singer and actress Soko. First-time director DiGiusto spent years researching, but then she decided to embellish and invent stuff. It's set around the turn of the previous century, starting out in the photogenic American heartland, then New York, then mostly Paris, and I have to say, it looks great. Judge for yourself.
Bon, très bien. Demain, je vous fais passer une audition en public. Et au revoir.
Je peux pas, je suis pas prête. Je chanterai quand je serai prête. Faut que je continue à m'entraîner.
Je viens regarder ses dessins. Il se tient à son dispositif.
Et c'est quoi toutes ces machines?
Ce sont des projecteurs électriques.
Exactement.
Tout ça pour une danse?
J'ai aussi besoin d'hommes pour tenir les projecteurs. J'ai de l'argent pour payer tous mes techniciens et toutes mes lumières, vous inquiétez pas.
Now, I'm fully aware that a lot of the narrative is complete nonsense, but I still really enjoyed watching this movie. You can call it a guilty pleasure. The dance sequences are thrilling, and they're shot so that we feel the effort that went into them. Soko trained 7 hours a day for 2 months to perfect the dances, which involved twirling 350 meters of silk spun by 2 wooden rods in
Sounds
choreography.
dangerous.
Yes, and takes a lot of upper body strength. The stuff that she's doing seems miles ahead of its time, and it was using newfangled electric lights. She was a pioneer in what we'd now call multimedia or performance art, not strictly a dancer. Here's Soko describing her own early relationship to her body and creative movement.
Mes premiers souvenirs de cours de danse, c'était d'être le petit hippopotame de la classe, très maladroite et
I was very
avec
awkward with
aucune
no
habileté.
talent.
Du coup,
So I
j'avais
already
déjà
felt uncomfortable in my body and was convinced I'd never be a dancer. And that's a bit what Loie went through. She would never have been a classic dancer.
Now, when the film premiered, I know that most people were excited to learn that Isadora Duncan was to be played by Lily Rose Depp, up-and-coming actress, but you got excited about the real-life character, Loie Fuller.
Indeed, I did. You bet. Loie Fuller was a pioneer of modern dance. Her innovations were considerable. She understood costumes, light, movement, and she created these visual whirlwinds. Audiences sat in the dark watching Fuller's sort of diaphanous contortions, and while as many as 25 stagehands were handling the lights and colored gels. Now, the young Isadora Duncan was only 16, and she was a real dancer. And Loie was an artist who worked with light and movement, so they were definitely rivals. And here, Isadora is presented as sort of a pixie-ish little vixen and arrogant tease. There's some sexual tension there. Fuller set her sights on performing at the Paris Opera when electricity was so new that you couldn't be sure that the lights wouldn't just all burn out. And she did herself considerable physical harm, including to her eyes, from the strong footlights. Talk about being devoted. Now, Soko is very good. Lily Rose Depp isn't bad. And Melanie Thierry, who we saw in that clip hovering in the background, is astonishingly good. Gaspard Ulliel is in it. He's fun to watch as a dandyish rich guy who snorts what I presume to be ether. You could have called this movie Let Us Suffer for Our Art and Then Suffer Some More.
Okay, well, we're moving now from a period piece to something much more contemporary, a contemporary story set in Brazil, the film Aquarius, apparently one of the most widely distributed, widely sold Brazilian films outside of the country, so you might be able to see it somewhere else, but not necessarily in Brazil.
Yeah, this is tricky. The irony may be that it may be easier to see it in other countries than its native Brazil. This very fine film was in competition this past May in Cannes, and the photos went around the world of individuals connected with the film holding up signs on the red carpet referring to what they believed to be and what most of the distraught Brazilian film critics at Cannes I spoke to believed to be an actual coup in progress underway in Brazil. Now, the director has referred to it as a cynical and modern coup, and the authorities, always looking out for the well-being of youngsters, decided to slap a "you must be 18 to see this movie" rating on it because they said it features sex and drugs. Well, the sex mostly concerns a very sexy woman, the main character, played by the dazzling Sonia Braga. She is 65 or 66, a retired music journalist, and she happens to be the last person living in her apartment building, the Aquarius of the title. Now, personally, I think it would be a good thing for young viewers to be exposed to this idea that women in their 60s and beyond can be sensual firecrackers in the sack, but the authorities decided otherwise. We learned that this building has been an incredibly important part of her long life, and it's definitely a character in its own right, and she sees no reason why greedy real estate developers should be able to chase her out so they can knock it down and build something ugly and expensive on that spot. Now, you've certainly heard that the three most important aspects of real estate are location, location, and location. This is a very nice location, and it's in spitting distance of the beach, so people covet it. Let's take a look.
O senhor veio aqui para discutir a minha proposta sobre a compra do apartamento daqui de cima. Eu lhe mandei essa proposta, o senhor não respondeu, mas imagino que o senhor seja mesmo uma pessoa muito ocupada, tá certo? É sobre isso, senhor Geraldo?
Nós viemos aqui conversar com a senhora.
Sim.
Uma boa conversa, olho no olho, que é a melhor coisa. Nós dois trouxemos aqui para a senhora uma contraproposta.
Que ótimo! Do apartamento aqui de cima.
Não, aquela conversa que nós tivemos anteriormente é sobre a compra do seu apartamento.
Ah, é sobre a venda deste apartamento?
Exato.
Eu não vou vender, seu Geraldo, o senhor já sabe disso.
So the story focuses on one woman played by the hugely famous Sonia Braga. She's a megastar in Brazil, but there are definitely more universal, broader themes as well in the film?
It's about everything from love to architecture. It's about standing up for what you believe in and being creative and brave. Now, gentrification can be kind of nice, or it can be a steamroller of poor taste and craven expediency. Our heroine would rather have her wonderful apartment and its wonderful location than the money that the developers are offering. And I was stunned to learn that the building that they shot this in actually is the only building, the only older structure left on that stretch. Due to internal politics for those who care about such things, this will not be representing Brazil as a submission for the Foreign Language Oscar. However, this week its U.S. distributors announced that they are going to do a campaign for Sonia Braga for Best Actress, and her performance is outstanding. She's in nearly every frame. This is a great movie.
Well, we're moving to another film with a very short, snappy title, From Aquarius to Dogs. This is a debut film from Romania. It's out in France this week.
You know, it's getting to be a cliche to say that some of the most interesting films being made today are Romanian, but guess what? This is a very interesting film. It's kind of a Western, it's kind of a thriller, it's kind of a political drama. It is harsh but riveting stuff with some sardonic humor. The characters are, well, characters. A city slicker from Bucharest inherits a large plot of completely infertile land that he's inherited from a recently deceased relative, and he decides to sell it, as is his right under what most of us would refer to as the rule of law. But he's given some pretty broad hints by the locals that there are people in the vicinity who would just really, really prefer that he not sell it. But like I said, he's a city slicker, and he's dangerously impervious to the social codes, still very entrenched, left over from the communist past. It is a slow burn mystery, incredibly cinematic, delectably creepy. It's creepy. The laconic characters, they don't say much most of the time, but it's really worth listening when they do decide to say something. And the tension, I would say, seems melded at sort of a molecular level with the oppressive heat.
Okay, real estate from Brazil to Romania there. Now, it's another week, another film festival here in France. This time it's in the town of Dinard, the Breton town. They're hosting the annual British Film Festival. And Lisa, I believe you're a fan of this one.
I am an unconditional fan of this this festival. I was lucky enough to attend the second edition, and now it's in its 27th year, believe it or not. And back then, I clearly remember the organizers had a terrible time scaring up just 5 or 6 movies for the competition. I can remember panels with major British filmmakers saying that if Mrs. Thatcher, who had been Prime Minister at that point for about 10 years, had set out to create a program that would just squash and destroy the British film industry, she really couldn't have done a better job. With the passing years, of course, British films took off, built a following, especially what we in the outside world know as rom-coms, romantic comedies, things like Four Weddings and a Funeral, Notting Hill, Love Actually, very British. And with the help of substantial investments, especially from the French. On the art house side, of course, Ken Loach and Mike Leigh were allowed to flourish. Now, this is the first edition since the Brexit vote. Everybody's very worried about this. There's going to be a panel discussion. I have actually heard British filmmakers say that if the EU funding that so far has been available to British producers dries up, which it inevitably will, that this could be catastrophic and cause things to collapse. Now, the townsfolk turn out in such huge numbers that they have had to add venues every year, but I have to say it's completely unpretentious. It is absolutely designed for the general public. There's a jury which awards the Golden Hitchcock. It's headed this year by Claude Lelouch, who in his late 70s still manages to make a film a year, and there'll be a tribute to him in just a few weeks at the Chicago International Film Festival. So, showing this year is the infectiously buoyant Dublin set comedy Swing Street. And I should also point out that Bridget Jones's Baby will be shown there for the first time in France. Bridget Jones's Baby is a useful teaching tool for people who teach English to French people here in France. Why is that? Because it's possessives. If Bridget is Bridget Jones, but she doesn't possess anything, then she's Bridget Jones. But if she's Bridget Jones and she happens to have a baby, then it's Bridget Jones's Baby. You see how helpful that is. So I'll be back to tell you about her next week.
Don't forget your apostrophes, guys. We'll leave you with a little taste of the event where Britain meets Brittany on Dinard Sands. Thank you for being with us, Lisa. Remember to check out our website for more arts and culture. You can also keep up with Encore on our social media channels. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
Glamour. Raffinement. Élégance.